Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars drift past the viewport. The ship moved through space like a metal whale, carrying 5,000 human colonists to their new home on the outer rim. Jake had made this journey dozens of times before. Each trip brought more humans away from Earth, spreading them across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Jake's crew worked at their stations, checking numbers and watching screens. They were good people, all of them. Lisa Park sat at the navigation console, her fingers dancing over the controls. Ben Carter monitored the life support systems. Amy Johnson kept track of the cargo holds where families slept in cryopods, dreaming of their new world. Jake had been a ship captain for 15 years. In all that time, he had watched the Galactic Empire treat humans like useful pets. The aliens gave humans small jobs in tiny colonies on worthless planets. They smiled with their strange faces and spoke polite words, but Jake could see the truth in their eyes. To them, humans were nothing special. The communication system buzzed. Jake pressed a button and Admiral Lisa Bennett's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, older than her 50 years. Gray streaks ran through her black hair and worry lines marked her face. "Jake, we need to talk," she said. "Private channel?" Jake nodded to his crew. They put on their headphones and turned away, giving him privacy. This was how things worked when you dealt with Admiral Bennett. She was Earth's voice in the Galactic Council, the woman who spoke for all humanity in a room full of aliens who barely listened. "What's wrong, Lisa?" Jake asked. "Everything," she replied. "Commander Ryan Hughes sent a message from the frontier. The Zephyrians hit another human colony, wiped it clean." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Zephyrians were bad news. They looked like giant insects with metal parts grafted onto their bodies. They enslaved other species and used them for labor until they died. The Empire knew about them but did nothing to stop them. "Which colony?" Jake asked. "New Texas, 3,000 people." Jake closed his eyes. He had visited New Texas 2 years ago. Families had waved at his ship from the landing platforms. Children had pressed their faces against the windows to watch his crew work. Now they were gone. "What did the Empire say?" he asked. Lisa's laugh was bitter. "The same thing they always say. Humans chose to live on dangerous worlds. If we can't protect ourselves, that's our problem." Jake wanted to punch something. The Empire had given humans those dangerous worlds on purpose. They put human colonies on the edge of space where pirates and slavers could reach them easily. When bad things happened, the Empire just shrugged and said humans should have been more careful. "There's something else," Lisa said. "Ryan found evidence at the attack site. The Zephyrians didn't just kill everyone. They took some alive. For their slave markets." Jake's hands became fists. He had seen Zephyrian slave markets before. Humans died slowly in those places, working in mines and factories until their bodies gave out. The Empire called it unfortunate but legal under galactic law. "I'm calling an emergency session of the Human Colonial Council," Lisa continued. "We can't keep living like this." After the call ended, Jake stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were dying while aliens who called themselves civilized did nothing. The Empire had technologies that could stop the Zephyrians easily. They had fleets of warships and weapons that could destroy planets. But they only used their power to protect their own kind. Jake walked to his personal quarters and sealed the door behind him. He opened a hidden panel in the wall and pulled out a secure communication device. His hands shook as he entered a coded frequency. "Luna Station, this is Morrison," he whispered. A woman's voice answered. "Jake, good to hear from you. This is Kate." Chief Engineer Kate Sullivan ran the secret shipyards hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon. For 20 years, she had been building something that would change everything. Jake had never seen it, but he knew it existed. Every human captain knew. "Kate, they hit New Texas," Jake said. "I heard. Ryan already sent word. How many more colonies do we lose before we say enough?" Jake looked at his reflection in the dark viewport. He saw a man tired of watching his people die while their so-called protectors did nothing. "How long until she's ready?" he asked. "The retribution? Soon, very soon. We've been testing her systems for months. She's unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen." "Will she be enough?" Kate was quiet for a moment. "Jake, you know what we learned from studying their technology. The Empire has ruled for 1,000 years because they think in straight lines. Their tactics, their weapons, their entire way of thinking follows patterns. They expect everyone else to do the same. But we don't. No, we don't. Humans adapt. We change. We find new ways to solve old problems. The Retribution was built with that in mind. She doesn't just fight like their ships fight. She fights like humans fight. Jake heard footsteps in the corridor outside his quarters. He quickly put away the communication device and opened his door. Amy Johnson stood there with a worried expression. "Captain, we're getting reports from other ships," she said. "Something big is happening at Haven Colony." Jake followed her to the bridge. The communication officer had put the emergency broadcast on the main speakers. A man's voice came through the static, full of fear and pain. "This is Haven Colony calling any human ships. We are under attack. Zephyrian forces landed an hour ago. They're killing civilians. Please, if anyone can hear this, send help. They're in the schools. They're in the hospitals, please." The signal cut to static. Jake stood frozen. Haven Colony was home to 50,000 humans. It had farms and schools and hospitals. It had families who had never hurt anyone. Lisa's face appeared on the communication screen again. Behind her, Jake could see other human leaders gathering for an emergency meeting. "Jake, you heard?" "I heard. The Empire refuses to send help. They say Haven Colony is outside their protection zone. But it's not. The colony pays Empire taxes. They follow Empire law. Doesn't matter. The Empire says helping Haven Colony would provoke the Zephyrians unnecessarily." Jake felt something break inside his chest. All his life he had tried to work within the system. He had followed the rules and hoped things would get better. He had believed that if humans proved themselves worthy, the Empire would eventually treat them as equals. He had been wrong. "Lisa," he said quietly, "send word to Kate, tell her we're done waiting." Lisa nodded. "It's time." "It's time." The communication ended. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They had heard everything. They knew what was coming. "Set course for Luna Station," he ordered. "Sir?" Lisa Park asked. "You heard me." "Luna Station. Best possible speed." As the New Horizon changed course, Jake watched the stars shift outside the viewport. Somewhere behind them, Haven Colony burned while the Empire looked the other way, but that was about to change. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you pushed humans too far. Admiral Lisa Bennett walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The massive chamber stretched up toward a domed ceiling painted with stars from 1,000 worlds. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in curved rows, their strange forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking trees, and a few resembled nothing Jake had ever imagined. At the center of the hall sat Supreme Chancellor Vextar of the Hegemony. His blue skin gleamed under the lights and his four arms moved as he spoke to other council members. When he saw Lisa approaching, his mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Ah, the human representative," Vextar said, his voice carrying across the hall through translation devices. "Have you come to ask for more mining rights? Or perhaps you need help moving your people to safer worlds?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. Lisa felt her face grow hot. But she kept walking toward the speaking platform at the center of the room. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but her heart still pounded as she climbed the steps. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I come before you today not to ask for help, but to make an announcement." The laughter died away. Vextar leaned forward in his chair, his black eyes focusing on Lisa with new interest. "Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Empire," Lisa said. "We reject your authority and your protection. From this day forward, humans will govern themselves." Silence filled the hall for several seconds. Then the laughter started again, louder than before. Delegate Mordek of the Crystal Federation stood up, his rock-like body glittering. "You cannot be serious," he said. "Humans have been Empire subjects for 2 centuries. You have no military, no advanced technology, no way to defend yourselves." "You are correct," Lisa replied. "We have lived under your rule for 200 years. In that time, you have given us scraps and told us to be grateful. You have watched our colonies burn and called it unfortunate. You have let slavers take our people and said it was legal." Vextar's smile grew wider. "And now you think you can simply leave? Child species often have these rebellious phases. You will come crawling back when reality sets in." "Perhaps," Lisa said. "But first let me show you something." She pressed a button on her communication device. A holographic image appeared above the speaking platform, showing a massive ship unlike anything in the council chamber. The vessel was sleek and dark with smooth curves that seemed to flow like water. Strange symbols glowed along its hull. "This is the UHS Retribution," Lisa announced. "Our answer to your indifference." The laughter stopped. Delegate after delegate leaned forward to study the image. Lisa could see confusion and doubt in their alien faces. "Impossible," whispered Counselor Zekrim of the Trade Alliance. "Humans do not possess the technology to build such a vessel." "You are right," Lisa agreed. "We did not possess it. We learned it. We studied your ships when you let us repair them. We watched your weapons when you used them against pirates. We remembered everything you taught us and we built something new." Meanwhile, in the depths of space near the outer rim, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution. The ship was everything Kate Sullivan had promised and more. The walls seemed alive, changing color and texture as the ship's systems adapted to different situations. The control panels responded to thought as much as touch. "Captain," said Commander Ryan Hughes from the tactical station. "Zephyrian patrol approaching. 3 ships, medium class." Jake studied the tactical display. The enemy ships moved in a standard formation, their weapons charged and ready. They expected to find helpless human colonists or maybe a few outdated cargo haulers. "Let's show them what they're really dealing with," Jake said. "Ryan, activate the adaptive shields." "Aye, sir." The Retribution shimmered and seemed to bend light around itself. To the Zephyrian ships, it would look like empty space until it was too late. Dr. Alex Carter looked up from his science station. He was young for a senior officer, barely 30, but his understanding of alien technology was unmatched among humans. "Captain, I'm detecting their scanning attempts," he reported. "Their computers are trying to identify us, but our hull configuration keeps changing. They can't get a lock." Lieutenant Commander Sam Foster smiled from her position at the weapons console. She had spent 5 years studying Zephyrian tactics, learning how they fought and what they expected from their enemies. "Their formation is textbook," she observed. "Ship 1 takes point, Ship 2 covers the flanks, Ship 3 hangs back for support. They've probably used this same pattern 1,000 times. Then let's give them something they haven't seen before," Jake said. "Sam, target Ship 3 first." "Sir?" "But standard tactics would be to hit the lead ship." "Exactly. They'll expect us to follow their rules." "Don't." The Retribution moved through space like a living thing. Its engines didn't roar like normal ships. Instead, they whispered, bending space around the vessel and pulling it forward. The Zephyrian ships never saw it coming. Sam's weapons struck Ship 3 from an impossible angle, seeming to appear from empty space. The Zephyrian vessel exploded in a ball of fire before its crew could even sound an alarm. "Impossible," breathed the commander of Ship 1 over the communication channels. "Where did they come from?" His answer came as the Retribution materialized directly above his ship. Sam's weapons carved through the Zephyrian hull like it was made of paper. The ship broke apart, its pieces spinning away into the dark. Ship 2 tried to flee, but the Retribution was faster. Jake watched as his ship seemed to fold space, appearing in front of the fleeing vessel before its captain could react. "This is Captain Morrison of the UHS Retribution," Jake broadcast to the surviving Zephyrian ship. "Tell your people what you saw here today. Tell them that humans are no longer helpless prey." The Zephyrian ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying word of humanity's new weapon. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, reports of the battle were already arriving. Emergency broadcasts filled the communication channels as word spread that a single human ship had destroyed 2 Zephyrian vessels in minutes. Supreme Chancellor Vextar's smile had vanished. He stood up, his forearms trembling with either rage or fear. "This is an act of war," he declared. "The Empire will not tolerate rebellion from subject species." "We are no longer a subject species," Lisa replied calmly. "We told you we were leaving. This is us leaving." "You have 1 ship," Counselor Zekrium pointed out. "The Empire has thousands." "Yes," Lisa agreed. "But our 1 ship just did something your thousands never could. It gave hope to every oppressed species in the galaxy." She was right. Throughout the council chamber, delegates from smaller species were whispering to each other. The Kentari, who had been enslaved for 3 centuries, looked up from their corner with new interest. The Vorthon refugees, driven from their homes by Empire expansion, straightened in their seats. "You have made a terrible mistake," Vextar warned. "The Empire has maintained peace for 1,000 years. Order will be restored." "Your peace was built on the suffering of others," Lisa said. "Your order meant slavery for anyone too weak to resist. That ends now." She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. "Where are you going?" Vextar called after her. Lisa paused at the door and looked back at the assembled delegates. "Home," she said. to prepare for war. As the chamber doors closed behind her, the council erupted into chaos. Some delegates called for immediate military action against the humans. Others demanded to know how a primitive species had developed such advanced technology. But in the corner where the smaller species sat, a different kind of conversation was taking place. For the first time in centuries, they were talking about hope. Fleet Admiral Zarkoth stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of 237 Empire warships. It was the largest fleet assembled in 50 years, enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. The alien admiral was old even by his species standards. His purple skin had faded to gray, and his tentacles moved slowly as he studied the tactical displays. He had commanded fleets for 3 centuries, crushing rebellions across the galaxy. No enemy had ever escaped his wrath. "Status report," he ordered, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Captain Mortek stepped forward, his insect-like body clicking as he moved. "All ships report ready for combat, Admiral. The human vessel has been located near Titan's Gate. It appears to be alone." Zarkoth's mouth parts curved into what his species considered a smile. "One ship against my entire fleet. These humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." "Perhaps both, sir," Mortek replied. The Admiral studied the reports from the previous battle. 2 Zephyrian ships destroyed in minutes by a single human vessel. It was impressive for primitives, but the Zephyrians were known for their poor tactics. The Empire's ships were different. They had shields that could withstand planet-killer weapons and hulls forged from the strongest materials in the galaxy. "Begin the attack," Zarkoth commanded. "I want that human ship intact if possible. The Emperor will want to study their technology before we execute the crew." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison watched the massive enemy fleet approach on his tactical display. Each Empire ship was 3 times the size of the Retribution, bristling with weapons and protected by energy shields that glowed like small suns. 237 ships, reported Commander Ryan Hughes. "That's enough firepower to glass a continent. Good thing we're not planning to stand still and trade shots with them," Jake replied. Dr. Alex Carter looked up from his science station, excitement bright in his eyes. "Captain, the quantum displacement drive is showing optimal readings. We can phase shift for extended periods now." Lieutenant Commander Sam Foster checked her weapon systems one final time. All torpedo bays loaded with adaptive warheads. "Point defense systems online. The ship is ready for whatever they throw at us." Jake nodded to his crew. These were the best humans had to offer, handpicked for their ability to think quickly and adapt to changing situations. None of them had ever faced odds like this, but none of them looked afraid. "Remember," Jake said, "they expect us to fight like they fight. Linear tactics, predictable patterns, logical responses. That's not who we are." Commander Nicole Walsh's voice crackled over the intercom from the fighter bay. "Sir, requesting permission to launch." "My pilots are getting restless." "Negative, Nicole. Keep your birds in the nest until I give the word. We're going to need that surprise." The Empire fleet arranged itself in a perfect formation, ships spread across space like a metal constellation. Admiral Zarkoth had used this same formation to crush the Corvin Rebellion 20 years ago. It was efficient, overwhelming, and had never failed him. "All ships target the human vessel," he ordered. "Concentrated fire on my mark." The Retribution sat motionless in space, seemingly helpless before the approaching armada. Jake could hear his crew's breathing in the sudden quiet of the bridge. "Sir?" Ryan asked quietly. "Wait for it," Jake murmured. The Empire ships opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams lanced through space where the Retribution had been floating. But the human ship was no longer there. "What happened?" Admiral Zarkoth demanded. "Where did they go?" "Unknown, sir," Captain Mortek replied, panic creeping into his voice. "They simply vanished." The Retribution had shifted into quantum phase, existing between dimensions where normal sensors could not detect it. But it could still see the Empire ships, and more importantly, it could still attack them. Sam Foster smiled as her targeting systems locked onto the rear guard of the enemy formation, firing adaptive torpedoes. The weapons materialized from quantum phase directly inside the shields of 3 Empire cruisers. The ships exploded from within, their debris spreading across space like metal snow. "Impossible," Admiral Zarkoth breathed. "No weapon can penetrate our shields." "Sir, detecting quantum signatures," his science officer reported. The human ship appears to be phase shifting between dimensions. Then adjust our sensors to track quantum displacement. We are trying, sir, but their phase variance keeps changing. Our computers cannot predict their pattern. The Retribution appeared above the Empire formation, firing down into their ranks before vanishing again. Then it appeared below them, launching another devastating attack. Each time the Empire ships tried to target it, the human vessel shifted to a new location. Jake watched his tactical display with growing confidence. Alex, how are our power levels? Quantum core is operating at peak efficiency, Captain. The ship seems to be adapting its own systems to optimize our attacks. Sir? Ryan called out. The enemy is trying to surround us. They're spreading their formation. Let them. Nicole, launch all fighters now. Commander Walsh's voice came back immediately. Launching all fighters. Give them hell, people. 30 human fighters burst from the Retribution's bays, their sleek forms darting between the massive Empire ships like angry hornets. The alien vessels tried to track them with their point defense systems. But the human pilots flew in patterns that made no mathematical sense. Where alien pilots relied on computer assistance and predetermined flight paths, the humans improvised constantly. They rolled and dove and twisted through space, their movements guided by instinct rather than logic. Fighter pilot Danny Cruz dove through a gap between two Empire ships that his computer said was impossible to navigate. His fighter scraped paint off both hulls as he passed through, then fired a missile into the engine core of a third ship. Got him, Danny whooped over the radio. These Empire boys fly like they're afraid to get their paint scratched. Admiral Zarkoth watched his formation crumble as the human fighters tore through his ranks. His ships were bigger and better armed, but they could not hit targets that refused to follow predictable patterns. All ships, random evasive maneuvers, he ordered. Sir, we have no protocols for random movement, his navigation officer replied. Then make something up. But it was too late. The Empire crews had trained for centuries to follow specific procedures and established tactics. They could not suddenly become unpredictable on command. The Retribution reappeared in the center of the enemy formation, its weapons firing in all directions. Empire ships exploded around it as Sam Foster targeted weak points that the aliens had never bothered to protect, because no enemy had ever been able to reach them. Their hull armor is incredibly strong, she reported. But their power coupling are vulnerable if you can get the right angle. Jake nodded. Then we make our own angles. Alex, prepare to ram the flagship, sir? Alex looked shocked. Our shields won't survive a direct collision with a ship that size. Who said anything about colliding? Phase us right through them and fire when we're inside their hull. The Retribution accelerated toward Admiral Zarkoth's flagship, shifting into quantum phase at the last second. The human ship passed through the Empire vessel like a ghost, materializing in its engine room long enough to fire a full spread of torpedoes into the reactor core. The Eternal Dominance broke apart from within, its massive hull splitting like an overripe fruit. Admiral Zarkoth died without understanding how his 1,000-year-old tactics had failed so completely. Jake watched the surviving Empire ships flee into hyperspace, carrying word of their impossible defeat back to their masters. Damage report, he called. Minor hull scoring from fighter combat, Ryan reported. All major systems functioning normally. Casualty report. 3 fighters lost, but all pilots recovered by search and rescue. No fatalities. Jake leaned back in his command chair, hardly believing what his crew had accomplished. They had faced odds of more than 200 to 1 and emerged victorious. Sir, Alex said quietly. Sensors are detecting emergency broadcasts across the galaxy. Word of our victory is spreading faster than hyperspace communication. Good, Jake replied. Let them know that humanity will not be pushed around anymore. Across the galaxy, oppressed species listened to the impossible news. The mighty Empire fleet, pride of 1,000 worlds, had been destroyed by a single human ship. For the first time in centuries, beings who had lived their entire lives under alien rule began to dream of freedom. Supreme Chancellor Vextar paced across his private chamber in the Imperial Palace. Outside his windows, the capital city of Hegemonia stretched toward the horizon, its towers reaching up into the purple sky. For 1,000 years, this world had been the center of galactic civilization. Now it felt like a prison. The reports lay scattered across his desk like pieces of a broken puzzle. 237 warships destroyed, Admiral Zarkoth dead. The entire Third Fleet wiped out by a single human vessel. The numbers made no sense, but the evidence was undeniable. A soft chime announced a visitor. Chancellor Vextar's aide, a nervous creature called Piptalk, shuffled into the room carrying yet another datapad. "More reports, sir," Piptalk squeaked. "The Andorian sector has gone dark. No response from any Imperial stations, and the Vorthan refugees have declared independence. They say if humans can fight the Empire, so can they." Vextar took the datapad and threw it against the wall. "One ship," he growled. "How does one ship destroy an entire fleet?" The door chimed again. Chief Tactical Analyst Meldar entered, her crystalline body glinting in the chamber's lights. She had studied warfare for 3 centuries, analyzing every major battle in Imperial history. If anyone could explain what had happened, it would be her. "Chancellor," she said, her voice like wind chimes, "I have completed my analysis of the human vessel." "Tell me something useful," Vextar demanded. Meldar activated a holographic projector. Images of the Battle of Titan's Gate filled the air between them, showing the impossible movements of the human ship. "The humans fight like no species we have encountered," she began. "Our tactics are based on mathematics, logic, and proven strategies. We calculate the optimal response to any situation and execute it perfectly. As it should be. Yes, but the humans do not follow this pattern. They make decisions that our computers classify as irrational, yet these decisions lead to victory. They attack where they should defend, retreat when they should advance, and target objectives that seem unimportant." Vexitar studied the holographic battle. He watched the human ship appear and disappear, striking from impossible angles. "Their technology should not work," he said. "Quantum phase shifting requires massive power generators. No ship that small should be able to sustain it." "That is what makes them dangerous," Meldar replied. "They do not accept the limitations we consider absolute. Their ship appears to modify its own systems during combat, adapting to new situations in real time. Impossible. Yet it happened. Furthermore, their fighter pilots display the same unpredictable behavior. They fly in patterns that violate basic principles of space combat, yet they achieve remarkable success rates." The Chancellor turned away from the hologram. Outside his window, he could see crowds gathering in the city squares. Word of the Empire's defeat had spread despite all attempts to control the information. Protesters carried signs demanding freedom for their worlds. "What do you recommend?" he asked. "We must study them further," Meldar said. "Perhaps we can develop countermeasures to their unconventional tactics. And in the meantime?" "In the meantime, sir, we must prepare for the fact that other species will follow the human example." As if summoned by her words, Piptalk burst into the chamber again. "Sir, urgent message from the outer colonies. The Kentari have seized 3 Imperial bases. The Crystal Federation is mobilizing their defense fleets. And, sir, the humans are liberating our slave camps." Meanwhile, in the depths of space near the former Zephyrian stronghold of Kepler Station, Captain Jake Morrison watched his crew work with quiet pride. The Retribution hung in space above the liberated station, its dark hull reflecting the light of a nearby star. The rescue operation had taken 6 hours. 3,000 human slaves, some who had been captive for decades, were now free. Medical teams worked around the clock to treat injuries and malnutrition. Many of the rescued humans wept when they saw Jake's crew, unable to believe that help had finally come. Commander Ryan Hughes approached Jake on the bridge. "Captain, we've received communication requests from 17 different resistance groups. Everyone wants to know if we'll help them fight the Empire. What did you tell them?" "That we'll help anyone willing to fight for their freedom." Dr. Alex Carter looked up from his science station. "Sir, I've been analyzing the Zephyrian technology we captured. Their slave control systems are more sophisticated than we thought. They've been using neural implants to suppress the will to resist." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. The Empire had allowed this. They had stood by while an entire species was turned into willing slaves through brain modification. "Can we reverse it?" "I believe so. The process will take time, but yes. We can give these people their minds back." Lieutenant Commander Sam Foster interrupted from her weapons console. "Captain, detecting Imperial reinforcements approaching. Looks like a patrol squadron. 6 ships. They must have received our liberation broadcast," Jake mused. "Let's send them a message they won't forget." The Imperial Patrol Squadron approached Kepler Station expecting to find their Zephyrian allies and human slave workers. Instead, they found the Retribution waiting for them like a dark angel of vengeance. The Imperial commander opened a communication channel. Unknown vessel, you are in violation of Imperial space. Identify yourself immediately. Jake activated his own transmitter. This is Captain Morrison of the United Human Federation. You are entering liberated space. Turn around and leave, or we will consider you hostile. Laughter came through the speakers. Human Federation? What nonsense is this? There are no human military vessels. You're looking at one. Impossible. Our records show humans possess no advanced warships. Your records are out of date. The Imperial ships moved into attack formation. Jake could see their weapon systems powering up on his tactical display. Final warning, the Imperial commander said. Surrender your vessel and prepare to be boarded. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were ready for battle, their faces calm and determined. Sam, show them what happens when you threaten liberated humans. The retribution phase shifted and appeared behind the Imperial formation. Sam's weapon struck two ships before they could react, their hulls cracking open like eggs. The surviving ships turned to face their attacker, but the human vessel was already gone. Where did they go? The Imperial commander screamed over the radio. His answer came as the retribution materialized directly above his ship. The human vessel's weapons carved through the Imperial hull like it was made of paper. The ship exploded in a burst of flame and metal. The three remaining Imperial ships fled into hyperspace, carrying word of another impossible defeat. Jake watched them disappear with satisfaction. Ryan, send a message to all liberated colonies. Tell them the Human Federation is accepting new members. Any species that wants freedom is welcome to join us. Sir, won't that make us a target for the entire Empire? We're already a target. The difference is now we're not alone. Across the galaxy, the message spread like wildfire. Species that had suffered under Imperial rule for centuries began to dream of something they had almost forgotten: hope. The Vorthan refugees declared their independence and asked to join the Human Federation. The Kentari followed suit, then the Androians, then dozens of smaller species. Each new member brought their own strengths to the alliance. The Vorthans had excellent engineers. The Kentari were master strategists. The Androians possessed advanced shield technology. But all of them learned the same lesson. Sometimes the best way to fight a superior enemy was not to fight like they expected. The humans had shown them that unpredictability and determination could overcome any advantage in numbers or technology. In his palace on Hegemonia, Supreme Chancellor Vextar watched his empire crumble one world at a time. The human ship that had started as a minor nuisance was now the symbol of a galaxy-wide rebellion. For the first time in his long life, Vexitar felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The Empire had ruled through strength and intimidation for 1,000 years. But strength meant nothing against an enemy that refused to be intimidated. The humans had taught the galaxy a dangerous lesson. Even the mightiest empire could fall if enough people decided to stop being afraid. The final battle began at dawn on Hegemonia, when the combined fleets of the Human Federation appeared in the skies above the Imperial capital. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching as 300 ships from dozens of liberated worlds took position around the planet. Beside the Retribution flew vessels from every corner of the galaxy. Vorthan cruisers with their crystal hulls gleaming like jewels, Kentari destroyers built for speed and stealth, Androian carriers launching swarms of fighters. All of them had one thing in common: they had learned to fight like humans. Supreme Chancellor Vextar stood in his war room deep beneath the Imperial Palace, surrounded by the last of his loyal commanders. Above them, the planet's orbital defense platforms powered up their weapons. The Empire had built these defenses over centuries, creating a shield of metal and energy that could destroy entire fleets. Status report, Vextar demanded. General Caxmore, his military commander, studied the tactical displays with growing worry. 300 enemy ships in orbit, sir. Our planetary defenses are online, but the enemy formation is unlike anything in our databases. Vextar looked at the display himself. The attacking fleet had arranged itself in a pattern that made no mathematical sense. Ships clustered in groups that left gaps in their formation. Some vessels hung back while others moved forward. It looked like chaos. They're making mistakes, he said. Our defenses will cut them apart. But General Caxmore had studied the previous battles. He had seen what happened when the Empire underestimated human tactics. Sir, perhaps we should consider negotiation. he suggested quietly. Negotiation? Vextar's voice rose to a roar. The Empire does not negotiate with rebels. Open fire, the orbital platforms unleashed their fury. Beams of pure energy lanced up from the planet's surface, weapons powerful enough to crack moons. But the Federation ships were no longer where the targeting computers expected them to be. Jake Morrison watched the enemy fire pass harmlessly through empty space. All ships execute pattern Delta 7. The Federation fleet scattered like leaves in a wind. Each ship moved in a different direction, following routes that seemed random but had been carefully planned. The orbital platforms fired again and again, but their computers could not predict where the enemy would be next. This is impossible, General Caxmore breathed. How do they coordinate without following standard formations? The answer was simple but revolutionary. The Federation ships were not being controlled by a central computer. Instead, each captain made their own decisions based on the situation around them. They adapted and improvised, working together without rigid plans or predetermined tactics. Commander Nicole Walsh led her fighter squadron through the orbital defenses like dancers through falling rain. Her pilots twisted and rolled between the energy beams, their movements guided by instinct rather than programming. Alpha Squadron, target the power generators, she called over the radio. Bravo Squadron, take out their sensor arrays. The fighters dove toward the planet's surface, skimming so close to the orbital platforms that their hulls scraped against metal. They fired their weapons into weak spots that no computer would have targeted, points where human eyes could see vulnerability that sensors missed. One by one, the great orbital platforms went dark. Without their defenses, Hegemonia lay helpless beneath the Federation fleet. But Vextar had one final weapon. Deep beneath the planet's crust lay the Reality Engine, a device capable of rewriting the laws of physics in local space. It was the Empire's ultimate secret, a weapon so powerful that using it could destroy entire star systems. Activate the Reality Engine, he ordered. Sir, his science advisor protested, that weapon has never been tested at full power. We don't know what will happen. I know what will happen if we don't use it. The Empire will fall. The Reality Engine powered up, drawing energy from the planet's core. Space around Hegemonia began to twist and change. The laws of physics became suggestions. Gravity reversed itself. Time moved backward and forward at random. The Federation ships found themselves trapped in a nightmare where nothing worked as it should. Weapons fired backward at their own ships. Engines pushed vessels in directions they were not pointed. Several ships simply vanished, erased from existence by reality itself. Jake Morrison felt the retribution shudder as space warped around it. Alex, what's happening? Dr. Alex Carter struggled to read his instruments as they displayed impossible readings. They're using some kind of reality manipulation device, Captain. It's changing the fundamental laws of physics in this region of space. Can we fight it? Not with conventional tactics. But sir, I have an idea. Alex's fingers flew over his controls as he accessed the Retribution's most advanced systems. The ship's quantum core began to pulse with new energy. What are you doing? Jake asked. If they can change reality, so can we. The Retribution was designed to adapt to any situation. Let's see how far that adaptation can go. The human ship began to glow with an inner light. Its hull shifted and changed, becoming something more than metal and circuits. The Retribution was transforming itself into a vessel that could exist in altered reality. Around the Federation fleet, other ships began to follow the Retribution's example. The Vorthan vessels used their crystal technology to harmonize with the changing physics. The Kentari ships simply refused to acknowledge that reality had changed, continuing to fight as if nothing was wrong. Impossible, Vextar whispered as he watched his ultimate weapon fail. The Reality Engine should have destroyed them all. Sir, General Caxmore said quietly, I don't think these beings follow our understanding of what's possible. Jake Morrison opened a communication channel to the planet below. His voice carried to every corner of Hegemonia, broadcast on frequencies that reached every citizen. People of the Empire, he said, this is Captain Morrison of the Human Federation. Your leaders have spent 1,000 years telling you that resistance is impossible. They said the Empire was too strong, too advanced, too perfect to be defeated. On the planet's surface, millions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen to the humans' words. They lied to you, Jake continued. No empire is perfect. No ruler is all-powerful. Today you see proof that even the mightiest tyrant can fall when people refuse to accept injustice. Vextar tried to cut the transmission, but his technicians reported that the human signal was bypassing all their systems. "We did not come here to conquer you," Jake said. "We came to offer you something your leaders never could, the choice to be free." Across Hegemonia, beings who had lived their entire lives under imperial rule began to understand that they had options. In the factories, workers laid down their tools. In the government buildings, clerks refused to process orders. In the military bases, soldiers questioned their commanders. The empire was not falling to superior firepower. It was falling because its people no longer believed in it. Supreme Chancellor Vextar watched his 1,000-year dynasty crumble in a single day. Reports flooded in from every corner of his domain. Worlds declaring independence, fleets defecting to the Federation, governors surrendering their authority. "Sir," General Caxmore said softly, "it's over." Vextar looked around his war room at the faces of his remaining loyal servants. They were few now, and even they looked uncertain. "Perhaps," he said finally, "it is time for a new beginning." Jake Morrison accepted the Emperor's surrender in the Great Hall where Admiral Lisa Bennett had once declared humanity's independence. But this time, the chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds, all equal partners in the new Galactic Federation. The Retribution remained in orbit above Hegemonia, no longer a weapon of war but a symbol of hope. Its dark hull reflected the light of freedom that now shone across the galaxy. In the months that followed, the Federation grew to include nearly every world in known space. The former Empire's weapons were turned into tools for building. Its warships became exploration vessels. Its slaves became free citizens. Jake Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but his true victory was not the battles he had won. It was the lesson he had taught the galaxy, that no one is powerless who refuses to give up hope. The Empire had ruled through fear for 1,000 years. The Federation would endure through something much stronger, the unbreakable human spirit that refuses to accept injustice, and the proof that even the smallest flame can light up the darkest night.